I'm gonna put a graph here that I got from the website called Zumper, and they actually have this amazing graph that shows all the median rent for all the different neighborhoods around Boston. Hi guys, my name is Arpit, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the cost of living in Boston. I have been living in Boston since about 2018 and making videos about managing my finances as a young person. The important consideration about moving to a new city is that you really want to make sure what the cost of living in that city is, because ultimately you don't want to be spending more money than you bring in. So in today's video we're going to be talking about 4 main things that we spend money on in a city, and the number one is rent, followed by transportation, food, and then utilities. So we're going to be talking about all 4 of this in context of living in Boston, and then I'm going to be sharing with you what my cost of living in Boston is, so you can draw parallels and estimate what your cost of living in Boston would be like. So let's get started. Again, throughout the video I'm going to be making this populated list where I'm going to be writing all my costs. So at the end of the video, again, you can take a screenshot so you know what the cost of living is like. So let's get started. So let's talk about rent first. Rent is basically where most of your money will be going. I am not kidding. At one point, about half of my paycheck was going to rent. It's August already, and September is the time when a lot of leases turn over in Boston. So you and I and a lot of people in Boston would be moving. This is a good time for rental analysis anyways, and I do that periodically. So I found out that the median cost of different apartments in Boston for a studio, for a 1-bedroom and a 2-bedroom apartment are as follows. For a studio, the median rent is about $1,800 right now. It goes up to about $2,300 for a 1-bedroom, and then it goes up to about $2,700 for a 2-bedroom. So in terms of cost of living, you can appreciate that the rent is really expensive in Boston. So the best way to save money is actually either live a little outside of the city, because the rents get cheaper. And for that, I'm gonna put a graph here that I got from the website called Zumper, and they actually have this amazing graph that shows all the median rent for all the different neighborhoods around Boston. So you can find out where you're going to be working or studying, and then sort of decide on the neighborhood that's closer to you. For example, the median 1-bedroom rent for Boston proper, like I said, is $2,300, but it almost goes down to $1,300 if you could live in Worcester. So if you can commute from these neighborhoods, then your rent goes significantly down. Another way of saving on rent is to live with somebody. So you can have a roommate, you can have a partner that you're living with, and you can basically either split the rent or pay a fraction of the rent. So for example, in terms of my cost of living, right now about $1,100 of my paycheck goes to my rent. So that's how much I'm spending on rent right now. We live in a 1-bedroom apartment and a small office space in a neighborhood called Jamaica Plain, or JP. Even if you're living with somebody and splitting the rent, because the median rent is so high in Boston, you would definitely be paying anywhere around from $1,000 to at least $1,500, even if you're splitting the rent. So next comes the transportation, and for transportation, I want to start off by talking about the MBTA, or the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority. So this is a map of what the metro train connectivity in Boston looks like. These are all the metros that run over the road or underground, and they connect almost all of the Boston. For $90, what you would get is a monthly link pass. For $90, you can ride any of these trains or any of the buses that are connecting the Boston city. So you pay $90 once a month, and that's the cost of basically traveling around Boston on public transport. Also, a lot of workplaces have deals. For example, my workplace reimburses me 50% of this monthly link pass. So I end up only spending about $45 for my monthly link pass, which is amazing. So because for $45 throughout the month, I can take any train I want, I can take any bus I want to get wherever I want. So because if you live in Boston proper, the connectivity is really good. You don't need a car if you're living in Boston proper. But if there are neighborhoods that you're considering, like the ones I mentioned earlier, they could be like Worcester, Malton, Somerville, all of these neighborhoods, you might want a car to travel in and out of the city a little bit, which will make your life easier. There are also options if you don't want to get the monthly link pass. So if you just want to ride the train once, the cost for one trip is about $2.40. So if you're going to be taking trains on and off or taking public transportation on and off, you can estimate from that what your cost would be like. If you've already paid off your car, then the cost of having a car in Boston is mainly going to depend on the inspection. We have to get our cars annually inspected here once a year. The gas that you're spending on your car monthly or annually, the maintenance of the car, and that's about it. So I think annual cost of maintaining a car in Boston, if you talk about the inspection, gas, maintenance, a ticket here and there, I think it definitely comes out to be around $500 to $1,000 per year. If your car is paid off. I think it needs to be mentioned here that I think Boston is also a very walkable city as well as a very bikeable city. I walk to a lot of places all the time, not in winter, but in summer and spring and fall for sure. I walk all the time, and then there are blue bikes all around the city which people ride throughout the year. Again, when it's snowing heavily, you can't do that, but for most of the year, or like 6-7 months, you can easily just walk around the city or bike around the city. So now let's add the transportation to our populated list. It comes out for me to be about $45 per month for my monthly link pass and about $85 per month in maintaining my car. Now let's talk about utilities. So the main utilities you're going to end up paying are the internet, electric bill, water bill, and phone bill. So there's not much explaining here to do because you know what internet, water, electricity, and phone is. So for internet, I spend about $40 a month. For electric bill, I spend about $80 to $100 a month. The water bill comes out to be about $50 a month. And then the phone bill for me is about $85 a month. So if you add all of those up, so if you add the internet, the electricity, water, and phone bill, it comes out to about $230 to about $250 a month. So these are all important considerations when you choose an apartment, because if your apartment is really expensive in terms of rent and then the utilities are extra, then so you can end up spending up to $250 a month extra on utilities. So if your rent, say, is $1,500, you'd actually end up paying around like $1,750 or $1,800. So it's really important to factor utilities into your cost of living. So now let's talk about the most important part, or the food. So obviously you have to sustain yourself while you're working and you're living. In general, you have to eat. So we're going to talk about groceries in Boston. So for groceries, there are a lot of chains in Boston like Stop and Shop, Star Market. There are a lot of Whole Foods everywhere, Trader Joe's. So I don't have a particular grocery store that I love, but definitely in terms of cost, I think Stop and Shop and Star Market are more on the affordable side versus Trader Joe's and Whole Foods are more on the expensive side. I actually do like Trader Joe's. I think it's somewhere in the middle, but Whole Foods for sure is more on the expensive side. So in terms of groceries, I end up spending about $70 to $75 a week on my part of the groceries, or groceries in general. So if you multiply that by 4 weeks in a month, that comes out to be around $300 for groceries. So if you add all the costs in our populated list, which is the rent, transportation, utilities, and groceries, comes out to be around $1,780 or $1,800 a month. So that is just the cost of living in Boston with these basic requirements. So obviously there are miscellaneous costs that I have not talked about yet. For example, trips, going out, Amazon deliveries, pets, all of those things, which I have all 4 of those, and I feel like it is important to factor those costs in as well in the cost of living. So I would say miscellaneous costs too come about, like, I think similar to groceries, like I would say $50 to $60 a week. So if I add those miscellaneous costs to the cost of living, you can see that it jumps from $1,780 to about $2,030 or about $2,000. Now I know I'm gonna get a lot of comments about, you know, how expensive this is, or this is not actually reflective of what cost of living in Boston is like. I just want to preface by saying this is my cost of living in Boston, and I wanted to give you an idea about what it is like living in Boston and spending money on all these things. So if you're thinking about moving to Boston, if you are going to be studying here, if you're going to be working here, if you're a new person in the workforce, you know now roughly how much you'll be spending in Boston. So before you make your moving decisions, keep these tips in mind, take a screenshot of this populated list, keep keep it in mind and manage your finances well. I love you. I'm going to be coming out with more Boston videos pretty frequently. If you like this video, please subscribe, please give it a like, please share it with people who are wanting to move to Boston or around New England. Thank you so much, and until next week, bye.